Will Tennessee have to win games with defense next year? They did that last year, which if I would have told you before last season that was going to be the case, you would have absolutely said I was crazy. You would have said, this is Josh Heupel. This is another great quarterback in Nico Iamaleava following up Hendon Hooker a couple of years ago. Joe Milton was an aberration. Everybody's all on board with the offense. At least they were last year. And how did they win games? They won games a lot on defense, and their defense at times was dominant. Maybe better for the program, but I'm curious if Tennessee goes in that direction or that was a one-year thing. Ideally, of course, it would be both. You'd have an explosive offense and a dominant defense, but that doesn't happen a lot, especially with the way that college football has changed in terms of the transfer portal and the fact that NIL money means that more people can dole out some cash, and you've got the leveling of the playing field. I don't think that the elite teams, say Ohio State's an elite team last year, or Alabama or Georgia last year, I don't think that they are separated nearly as far as Alabama was in its heyday under Nick Saban. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Will Tennessee have to win games with defense this season?
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, do you think Tennessee will have to win games with its defense? And let's be clear, we're not talking about the Syracuses of the world, teams that Tennessee should just clearly be better than and win pretty easily. And there's some SEC teams like that. But let's talk about the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world, and even maybe the Floridas of the world. Will Tennessee have to win games with defense this season, or does the offense return to 2022 form?
This is going to be one of my hotter takes, because I missed on this last year, and I acknowledge I missed on this last year, but I think the offense is returning to 2022 form. And I got a few reasons for that. And here's what I think is going to, there's a few reasons I think the offense is going to return to 2022 form, Dave, actually. One, I think Joey Aguilar has a better chance of being a better fit for the system than Nico, because I can't believe I said that because of Nico, what I said about him all last year. And I get it. Nico as a decision maker, though, doesn't fit the offense as well because he's not willing to take risk with his throws. I think Joey Aguilar's willingness to take risk will allow receivers to make a lot of plays more. That's the first part. The second part, I think Joey Aguilar is going to be better protected passing the ball because David Sanders and a healthy Lance Hurd are going to be better than a sprained ankle John Campbell and a sprained ankle Lance Hurd last year. Also, I think Tennessee's going to be significantly better at receiver. You know, you ever read those magazines, Dave, and you're like, they lost this many starters at this position. They're just not going to be as good next year. And it's like, well, maybe the people behind them are better. And that's the case to me for the receivers. I think the entire receiving core that's stepping in is better than the receiving core last year. So I think they're going to have a huge upgrade at receiver. Lastly, and this is a big one, there's two other things beyond this. Heupel brought in Seth Littrell from Oklahoma. Obviously not a good offensive coordinator. He was fired last year coaching under Brent Venables. But you could also say that maybe because what Brent Venables was trying to do clashed with what Seth Littrell was trying to do. But Heupel's trying to adjust to the 3-3-5 shell defenses teams run against him. He spent all offseason, from what I've heard, trying to figure out ways to adjust and tweak his offense to make sure it can fit with what they're doing. And I think you're not going to see that shell defense as much this year, Dave, because Dylan Sampson just set the school record for rushing yards and touchdowns. I think teams don't want to get gashed on the ground now. And finally, and this is a big one, the NCAA's new injury rule that they're working on, where players have to come out for a period of time if they're down. They're not going to be able to fake injuries, so the tempo is going to return to Tennessee's offense. All of that cobbled together should lead to the offense being significantly better, even if Joey Aguilar is not as good of a passer as Nico Iamaleava was.
Okay, I can't flow with you there. I'm gonna tell you that I think this. I think that Tennessee has a quarterback issue. I don't think they're going to get great quarterback play in September, and who knows if they'll get great quarterback play the rest of the season. I think there's an issue with Alex Golish going to South Florida. I think there's an issue with the offensive staff. I think we've learned that Josh Heupel is great at game planning. He's great at putting together a scheme, but I don't know that he's great from a play calling standpoint. I don't know that he's great from a developing quarterback standpoint. It's not a knock. I still think he's a B plus, maybe even. But I don't know that Joey Aguilar is going to turn into a fantastic quarterback in the coming months. That just seems like a reach to me in the SEC. Our poll question: vote on YouTube. Will the defense have to carry Tennessee again in 2025? 90% say yes, Caleb. So 90% disagree with you. 10% say no. The Josh Heupel offense is back. I think there's a little bit of wishful thinking there. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Discuss more about Tennessee's defense and why I think it can be really, really good. And I don't think that it peaked last year. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Again, they are a Parkside Drive and Kingston Pike, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, and an absolutely incredible selection, great customer service. Today's tough question: more on Tennessee's defense, brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year.
Sorry, that wasn't supposed to play. All right, so some highlights from Tennessee's starting lineup on defense. Boo Carter is going to be that much better. Ricky Gibson, I believe, will be significantly better. Dominique Bailey, Jackson Moy on the defensive line. To some extent, Bryson Eason and Joshua Josephs were borderline starters last year. I like Jeremiah Tellender. I really do. And I think Arian Carter, we'll discuss him in a second when we talked about the front of the EA Sports game. If they had a Tennessee Sports game alone, I think Arian Carter is on the borderline of being a star. So, Caleb, I think the defense carries this team again. Offensively, and you brought up some great points, but offensively, where's the upgrade? It's not going to be a running back. Dylan Sampson's gone. In retrospect, maybe it is at receiver because Tennessee didn't get what they thought they would get, and they'll bring in Mike Matthews for a second season, Chris Brazel for a second season. He's a junior. So I think they take a step, and I do think that it takes a season to get accustomed to this offense. And then up front, Lance Hurd should be better at tackle. The other tackle position you would think would be David Sanders Jr. I believe in one of those. I believe in Hurd year number 2. I'm not sure about Sanders yet. I just I don't see this offense taking a step, whereas I see this defense maintaining a high level of success.
So here's one of the things that I would have to say. Now, I don't want to be too negative on the defense. I was really talking positively about the offense, but I do have to bring this up, which is that Tennessee. The Tennessee defense, in particular, at cornerback, I'm going to see a drop off this year because Jamal McCoy's not going to be healthy the first month of the season. I think Jamal McCoy altered the entire defense last year. I also think that, given the way they talked about Joshua Josephs, he's pretty much in line to replace James Pierce, no questions asked. And the reason that's a big deal to me, Dave, is because whatever you think of how James Pierce was used, and maybe you think he was misused, and I know you do, and that's fair, but at the same time, he still is significantly more impactful than Joshua Joseph is going to be. I have no faith in Joshua Joseph to come close to the level of James Pierce. I have faith in Jordan Ross, but not Joshua Joseph. I think Joshua Joseph is more of a body. So you lose an edge rusher that alters the entire offensive line's blocking schemes. You don't have a lockdown corner at 100%, which changes how teams throw the ball. That changes everything about your defense. I agree with you about Arian Carter, by the way. He's going to be a stud. I see All-American potential in him. But I see a bit of a drop-off with the defense early. And meanwhile, I'm sorry, I don't see how the offense isn't – we're underrating the new injury rule. That's honestly that's a huge part of this. The tempo is going to be able to come back for Tennessee. Everybody was talking about, people figured out the Heupel offense and things like that. But no, it's not that. It's that players realize fake the injuries. And so Heupel had to slow things down. He can bring his tempo back next year. And again, I don't think you're going to see the same shell defenses because of what you just brought up about Dylan Sampson. Dave, I'm going to ask you this, and we love Dylan Sampson, all the respect in the world to him. Give me a power ranking real quick of the biggest reason Dylan Sampson set the school record for rushing touchdowns and rushing yards. These three things. The interior offensive line was elite. Teams sold out to let Tennessee run the ball because they didn't want to give up the pass. And Dylan Sampson's abilities.
I would go Sampson's ability, sell out to stop the pass, and then what was the third?
Interior blocking.
I would interior blocking is pretty good. I might put interior blocking number 2.
You think so?
Honestly, I think you've undersold Sampson again.
I love the way Sampson ran. I think it had way more to do with the way teams sold out to stop the pass last year. I do. I think teams sold out to take away the passing game, which opened things up so much for Dylan Sampson. And luckily for Josh Heupel and luckily for Tennessee, Josh Heupel's not Steve Spurrier, which is Josh Heupel was willing to just keep it on. He basically said, if you're going to do that, I'll go 12 personnel and keep it on the ground the whole game. I don't care. And teams did that. So I think Sampson is a good running back, runs very hard. I root for him in the NFL, but his record-setting production. I mean, Dave, do you really consider him the most talented running back in Tennessee football history? Because I don't.
Well, no, but he doesn't have to be that to be a dominant running back.
No, but to have the most
the guys that I've covered, you got to remember that stretches back to 98, and I followed Tennessee even before that in the late 80s. I think he's top 10, and that's saying something.
Yes, but but then how do you go from top 10 to warrant the greatest production in the history of Tennessee? That's because of how teams play defense. More than anything, they sold out. I mean, you know this. You covered the year. Whose record did Dylan Sampson break? He broke Travis Stevens' record.
True.
Well, why did Travis Stevens set that record? All due respect to how hard he ran, but it's a little easy to set that record when teams got to account for Dante Stallworth, Kelly Washington, and Jason Witten, isn't it? In the passing game,
Some truth to that.